There is definitely an overarching theme in that in the current climate, the current environment, we as social care providers and the care community, and definitely in community, need to do more with less. There's more need. There's more people presenting with the needs for care and support, and we have to find ways of maximizing what we do to get the best impact for people. So that's what I call the leitmotif, which is over these two conferences, these two summits, because really, with the use of technology, with the use of new models of care involving community and involving people in their own care, the whole theme is about having to do more with less in a quite very, very tough environment. I think there are specific issues. I mean, you tend in the north to have greater spread of services, and but there's also a spirit of innovation in there as well. So we talk about various parts of the country that need various, be they deprived, be they more community areas that have specific issues. So, for example, workforce retention is one where there's definitely specific issues in the north because of the greater distances that people have to move, and also because often we find carers move in communities, and where communities are based, they can actually be providing great people for the workforce. So that's one of the issues we're going to look at. I think there's specific issues in there of community-based care, which are coming through very well in some northern places, in York and Humber, in Manchester, for example. And so we want to bring those out in the day. So I think, yeah, where we are is very, very important. The changes are national, but how they affect what happens to the north is slightly different, for example. So, we are looking at some of the issues for devolution, which is a very live issue in areas of the north. So one of the areas we want to work in is in 2016-17, health was devolved to Greater Manchester Authority. And so what we want to do is bring out their experience of how that devolution of healthcare has affected the delivery of social care, affected services for people. How has that been? There's greater unity among the care provider sector because they're working together under a greater combined devolved authority. Does that work in actuality? What's the progress been in those now since 2017, 7 years since then? Obviously, COVID was a major issue. Now, it's funny, one of the panels here in the summit is about what we've seen happen during COVID, because there were regional issues. We remember, Andy Burnham, for example, standing up and saying that the lockdown in localized areas wasn't working, and that affected the local area. So we're going to explore actually what effect COVID has had in the short term and the long term on the delivery of services, because in some way it was the mother of innovation. The necessity of things we had to do during COVID led to great changes, great leaps forward in some way. It was a tragic way to do it, but there was a great leap forward in lots of areas in digitization, in helping people stay at home safely. So we're going to explore that as well. And we're going to look at the role of maybe care technologists as well in care, because technology is taking over, and more that taking that theme of COVID to further, there's been a greater need to share health and care data. So one of the things we're really going to look at is how that data is shared across regions, across different actors in the health and care space. So all this fits into what has changed. And obviously now we have the change of government. Now the change of government has meant that, well, in social care, it meant some very tough times. The Labour government is trying to lead on that home to community and sickness to prevention, means that there's a greater role for social care in what we're doing in community. So one of the panels, for example, is looking at how complex care is delivered at home. So we have Deb Sturdy, the chief social care nurse, talking about how the move from hospital to community or to home on the delivery of complex care. And that's a great panel with Martin Jones of Home Instead, with Stella Shaw of Stellar Care, really looking at how that move is working. So those are all some of the changes that we're seeing, the shifting patterns of how care is being moved into the community, plays into the hands, if it's financed correctly, of social care and people acting in the community. Leaders, for example, we have James Tugendhat of HC1, the Chief Executive of HC1 speaking, and Martin Ricks of Belong. Now, these are northern-based powerhouses in the care community. We're going to bring them along, and we're also, one of the things I'm very interested in is we are focusing on services for people who are living with dementia. And in Manchester, there is the first Centre of Excellence for Music and Dementia. So Giles Wilmore, who's managing director of Manchester Camerata, will be there. And we're hoping to involve some of the people who he's working with. And this will be the backdrop to a greater networking experience, because the caliber of people that we're bringing together, from commissioners, from people involved in community, from people involved in technology, will mean that you're sharing ideas, and there's nothing like sharing ideas face to face than over the internet, because that's where you really get to meet people. And so, as part of both summits, there's 3 or 4 networking breaks and a long networking period where you'll mix with the exhibitors, where people will be able to see new technology, even meet people they might have only seen online, because that happens so many times now. So the networking is really, really important part of what we do. And don't forget, we also have the stadium tours of the Manchester City's Etihad Stadium. So if you choose a group to go onto that, that's your networking group as well. So we're promoting all the networking throughout the day and as an inherent part. And we also focus on people asking questions, because I want this to be as participative as possible. So by doing that, you introduce yourself to people and think, oh, I want to speak to that person. So the networking often stems from things that happened in some of the sessions and then leads out, and people break out into their own little breakout. So that's what we encourage. It's more about the devolution of care. What can people do as the move to devolve budgetary responsibility into the regions? How is that going to affect people? And that's why I focused earlier on the issues with the Greater Manchester Authority, which was one of the first to have the devolved powers. And we want to see how that's actually working, because if people have greater autonomy, it can unleash the innovation. So, for example, one of the people speaking is Rachel Law, who is chief executive of an organisation called Possibilities, which actually was a spin out from Rochdale Council about how people involve themselves in community. And that's got a very, very good base in the north. And I'm seeing other initiatives in the north which are taking into account community and linking people through technology as well. So the greater distances in some parts of the north mean that use of remote technology is being enhanced. And that's also one of the issues that we'll look at during the day. The investment panel is really interesting because there is opportunities. There's opportunities for investment in many areas, because in a lot of areas there is generally cheaper land in the north, so there's room for development. However, it's also difficult to actually ensure the financial model, where often remuneration for services by the local authorities can be lower. So this is one of the conundrums. If you've got cheap access to land, but actually not the remuneration, how do we bridge that gap and make that investment? And we're very pleased to have Virgin Money as one of the sponsors, who will be there to give advice to people and really engage with people about what's happening in different areas of the north of England. And it's difficult. We genericize about the north. Now there's different pockets in the north. Everyone has every part has its own character, and we also want to bring that out as well. So these will be some of the areas that we'll talk about. Definitely the first session on devolution of care responsibilities and how that works across a wider area. Also where the investment in care, where the possibilities are, what's happening, where you should be looking to invest at the moment. Those are specific ones. Also, then looking at the new models of care, the possibility in community, and we talk about this. Really, the main point of this is actually if we have providers together and commissioners together from the north, that's when we start sharing ideas. That's why we focused this in the Social Care Summit North. It's more about the people and the ideas and sharing ideas and the links that can be made there. That's what I want to be the focus of this. So we're making those links between the Northeast, Yorkshire, Humberside, Manchester, different areas, because I think there's a lot more sharing of ideas that can happen in a regional or super regional area in the north of England and Scotland. Focus on home care, specifically on home care, because it's about care from what the shift in the government, as they put it, is from hospital to community. Now, actually, community involves care homes, so I wouldn't say that one is over the other, and there is a definite need for at certain points to say actually there's a place for care homes, and there's a place for staying at home as well. And some people, there is one of the people being taking part is in the conference is Louise Lynch. Now, Louise Lynch does an amazing podcast called "Do I Sound Like I Care?" And at one point, she's interviewing Andy Burnham, the mayor of Greater Manchester, and who is caring for who's a carer for his father, who's living with dementia. And he describes how his father actually went into a care home, and it was actually allowed the family and his mother to live a bit more. And actually, they were secure in the knowledge that their father had a good quality of life. So while I agree there is a move to people receiving care at home, and that's why one of the sessions is on complex care at home, we're focusing on that very much. It needs to be put in the context of there is a right time and a right place for people to be cared for and supported. But I agree. If we are doing more at home and in the community, and part of that is us taking responsibility for our own care, because people are looking after their own lifestyles more, about measuring their own data as well. And we've got to incorporate that as the health and care offering or well-being offering matures. So that's what we're going to be, one of the things that we're going to be looking at. But as it's moving to home, it's not that simple. Yes, we want to look about hospitals at home. We want to look at greater remote monitoring. But that's got to be placed in the context of it's got to be right for the person, at the right place, and the right time, and the right service. That's the focus. Yeah, there will be definitely. When we're talking about development in dementia care, we'll look at the music and dementia. We'll look at how new technology is helping people monitor, live independent lives. Because for me, the way that technology works is that it actually helps people live more independently. So that's one of the areas we'll explore in the session on tools for living with dementia. But it also one of the things we'll look at when we look at the developments from COVID. So what's driving us towards this greater level of well-being, and then I always focus on this new models of care, because we can't just keep doing the same thing. We need to be doing more with less. So yes, there will be practical applications for how people are doing more with less, and that's with their workforce. So you're making sure that you have retention in the workforce, because it makes it so much easier to work if you're retaining your staff. So yes, there will be developments in dementia care. There will be developments in data and how we straddle data. And there is going to be some really good work when we in the session chaired by Clive Flashman on solutions that actually bridge the health and care gap. That's one of the focuses, because if we can bridge that health and care gap, if we can have a frictionless movement of data between health and social care, the benefits are innumerable. And that's one of the focuses of the conference. I mean, we have Martin Jones, CEO of Home Instead as well. I'm really happy. And we have a woman called Kelly Cleafer, who is an award-winning entrepreneur who is looking at how health plays out in the home. People like Kevin Samugam from MyCare, brilliant speaker on what's possible for people living with dementia and how we share data and how new technology works with people. Because if technology works right, it actually helps people live as independently as possible. So it means that anyone with a cognitive impairment or any other impairment can actually live as independently as possible. And I want to explore that issue about people living as independently as possible with the use of technology.